An amendment to improve postal services has been tabled. The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa gazetted the draft amendment to the Customer Care Standards Regulations for postal services licensees. Suggestions need to be submitted by the 5th of May. Let's find out what all of this is about from Icasa councillor Charley Lewis. Charley, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So how does this draft amendment aim to improve customer services at post offices?
Good afternoon, Anlie. It's an amendment to bring up to date the existing regulations which have been in place for almost 10 years now. And so we as the regulator, we license the post office in the area of reserved postal services, which is things like letters and small items. And we felt it was important for us to bring up to date the existing set of regulations. So there are regulations in place. They've been there since 2012. And we really worked through the regulations to try and improve them, bring them up to date, streamline them, modernize them. And we're now taking them through the process. As you so rightly pointed out, there are feedback, comments, submissions from stakeholders, members of the public by the 5th of May. Depending upon the feedback we get then, we may or may not hold public hearings, depending upon what the volume of feedback is. And then we will move to finalizing and gazetting the regulations, which will bring them into force once they've been finally gazetted. Thank you.
The South African Post Office has been in disarray and levels of dysfunction for many years now, and it seems efforts to revive it always fall short. Can we expect this draft amendment to have a considerable impact on not only customer services, but also on the basic functioning of the post office?
I can't speak for the basic functioning of the post office. Look, and we understand that the post office has been in difficult circumstances for a number of years. And obviously the board, the executive, the leadership of the post office needs to work hard to turn that ship around. I mean, they do sit on one of the most extensive networks of offices and facilities around the country, something over 1,000 post offices around the country. So it's a very extensive network. It provides particularly important services and facilities to people, and particularly people in remote rural areas and in poor disadvantaged communities. So it's very important that the post office should function effectively. However, we as the regulator in the sector are not able to, should not be intervening in that process. That's up to the board, the management, the leadership of the post office. Our particular area here is in terms of where the post office is a licensee of ours, and in respect, in this particular case, of customer service. So it's really about trying to make sure that the post office provides adequate, up-to-date, proper, sufficient customers or services to its customers across the country.
Charley, with all due respect, that must feel a bit like polishing the doorknob on a broken door. Your hands seem to be a bit tired. I mean, how can people at post offices provide good customer service when the basic functioning of the post office has been, halted, has been, in dysfunctional states for so long?
Well, be that as it may, with due respect, that's a different conversation. Okay. We regulate the post office, and so what we can do is we can put in place an up-to-date set of rules that specifies how the post office should be behaving and should be interacting with its customers around the country. So there's a whole series of provisions in those draft regulations that cover those aspects. We can also set in place a process and a procedure where customers who are dissatisfied with the quality of postal services around the country can complain to the post office in the first instance, and if they don't receive satisfaction from that channel, can complain to us as the regulator. So it's a fairly narrow area of intervention. We do in other areas at Icasa monitor the quality of service of the post office. So we do on an annual basis, on a 6-monthly basis, receive reports from the post office. Our complaints and compliance divisions do go out, visit post office, do monitor what's happening in the post office environment. We do tests, for example, test letter exercises and so on and so forth from time to time. So we do the best that we can from the regulatory side to hold the post office accountable to a proper set of standards in respect of its customers.
I'm sure many, many members of the public are going to be very grateful for improved customer service standards. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. That was Icasa councillor Charley Lewis.